Good morning, welcome to America's Freedom Media. I'm your host, the Angry American. I worked on this story till 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sorry I couldn't bring it to you till this morning. It's Hurricane Irma, and I want to get back into it. Miami. The fierce eye of Hurricane Irma made its second landfall in Florida on Sunday as the full intensity of the storm began battering the state's Gulf Coast. Days after alarming warnings forced millions from their homes and effectively shut down daily life. Irma had earlier Sunday made landfall on the Florida Keys before beginning what forecasters say could be a painful journey up the state's western coastline. The storm breached the Florida's coast on Sunday morning, making landfall just after 9 a.m. at Cudjoe Key. After churning through the Keys and on through to Florida's southwestern coast, Irma's second landfall occurred in Marco Island, Florida, at 3:35 p.m. A wind gust of 130 miles an hour was reported by Marco Island police, according to the National Weather Service. Irma had already made its presence known across South Florida, causing more than 2 million power outages and lashing major population center with driving rain and roof-rattling wind. The danger is only just beginning, forecasters warn, because the storm will grind along Florida's Gulf Coast on Sunday, bringing life-threatening storm surge. Today is going to be a long day, said Mark DeMaria, Deputy Acting Director of the National Hurricane Center in Miami. The Hurricane Center warned that Irma had created an imminent danger of life-threatening storm surge, flooding along much of the Florida West Coast, and the west coast of the Florida Peninsula through Monday morning. While Irma's path is now likely to hew to the Florida's Gulf Coast, the storm's sheer size and reach, hurricane-force winds extend about 80 miles from the center, and tropical storm winds extend out 220 miles, means that those across the entire state remain imperiled. Regardless of Irma's ultimate track, all of Florida, which is about 360 miles wide across the Panhandle, but much less than half as wide across the middle of the state, most likely will experience damaging winds, rains, flooding, and possibly tornadoes, which yesterday there were multiple warnings of tornadoes in Florida. By Sunday afternoon, even as Irma had shifted to a Category 2 hurricane, it remained a deadly storm with an impact that could be felt across South Florida. The storm was forecast to still remain dangerous as it approaches the densely populated Tampa Bay area, which experts say is woefully ill-equipped to confront a particularly powerful storm. Many people from Florida's eastern coast had sought refuge around Tampa in recent days before the storm's path shifted westward. Irma spent much of Sunday morning over the Florida Keys, the string of islands off the state's southern coast. The Keys could see up to 25 inches of rainfall, and storm surges could wash over the low-lying chain, a popular tourist destination that includes Key West. This is some time-lapse video from the Washington Post that I pulled along with the story that I just read you. I'm going to include the link to the story from the Washington Post in my description box, and I've got some more video for you from Fox News, and I'll let you watch those clips and be back with you.
Throughout the evening as our coverage continues.
You can feel it, Bill, and we can hear it.
Thank you for your continued coverage out there. Stay tuned for continuing coverage of Hurricane Irma as it continues to make its way up the Florida coast. We'll get the latest update on the storm track and talk to one of the many families forced to leave home.
Storm surge has the highest potential to kill the most amount of people and cause the most amount of damage. And so, my biggest concern is when people fail to heed a warning early from local government officials, and then they make a last-minute ditch to try to get to a shelter or into a facility to withstand the winds. And in some cases, the water starts to rise and they get trapped because they didn't heed the warning early, and that's my greatest concern.
Well, a big concern throughout the state. Adam Klotz back in the Fox Extreme Weather Center. And Adam, so we're feeling her here in Orlando. She has arrived. Good evening. What do you see on the radar?
Hey, good evening there, Bill. For the last hour or so, we've been seeing Fort Myers getting slammed by the eye wall, really moving across that area. I can bring you in here. Now, it has begun to pass through there, but it's this area where the winds are going to be the strongest. There's your eye wall. You see Fort Myers just now beginning to get to the south of that. So they've really been getting it here in the last hour or so. Naples got it a while ago. That's now farther to the south, so things are beginning to improve for them. But everyone out in front of this, everyone beginning to see more and more severe weather. These are all very heavy thunderstorms, embedded thunderstorms, and within some of these, we've had a couple of tornadoes spin up in the last several hours. Everything you're looking at in the red, that's a tornado watch in place because the conditions are there, but generally on the front right side of these storms, that's where those tornadoes spin up. That's been the case all of today as we see a tornado warned storm just outside of the Orlando area, also one just north of Daytona Beach. These will continue to fire up throughout the overnight hours, especially on the eastern side of the state. So even though the track of this thing's running up the west side of the state, that does not mean you're out of the woods if you're on the east side of the state. The winds have been very strong. Look at this, 142 in Naples as it moved through the area. That was just about an hour ago. Marco Island up to 130 miles an hour. These winds are going to stay this strong as this storm runs up the west side of the state. Look at this. And there's been a lot of folks who think, hey, I'm not there on the west side of the state. Maybe the winds won't be as bad. Everything you're looking at in this red area, that is a hurricane force wind. Everything in the orange area, which you see includes Orlando, stretches all the way to the coast, that is a hurricane force gust. So absolutely everyone across the state has this opportunity as this system continues to lift to the north. Actually, we're going to be talking about some very strong winds getting into Atlanta by late tomorrow night, lingering you into early Tuesday morning. The other big concern, and anytime you talk about all these big winds, is going to be the storm surge. Now that we're moving just north of Fort Myers, these numbers are going to start to climb 10 to 15 potential feet there, 5 to 10 feet in Tampa. Again, it's when you get on the backside of this storm that water really begins to climb. 15 feet, again, that's not a wave. That's just the base level of the water, and that's why this is so severe. Bill?
Adam, thank you. Adam Klotz there. We had a tornado warning here that expired about 45 minutes ago, and we've had several of those throughout the day today already. Adam, thanks. We'll be back with you next hour.
Take a look at this. This is the Panorama building. This is now the largest building on Miami being constructed at 84 stories tall, a residential building. It's been getting just whipped by the wind since the storm coming from the southwest with those winds. Guy, take a look at this. This is what's been falling from that building. These are 6-foot long glass panels falling from up to 85 stories tall across the street. This is the sixth one we've seen fall
that is
from
some
that
really
building.
intense danger right there.
One we've seen on the ground, and it's just tons of shards of glass that we've seen throughout the area. This is why officials do not want people on the streets, because frankly, the time in which you can probably get hurt the most is right after the storm. There are still tons of debris around. The city of Miami is sending out 5 recovery crews, essentially, debris crews, to see how much debris is on the is to evaluate the entire city to see what they have to do to clean up the area. I am bringing you now onto Brickell Avenue in downtown Miami. This is where we're seeing the effects of that storm surge. We are right by the water. These are residential high-rises, the JW Marriott as well, and you can just see the flooding. This is about ankle-deep water, and you can tell it goes all the way down, see, as far as our light can go. Now, the good news is that many of the buildings here seem to be elevated, so the water doesn't seem to have made it past the steps in many of these cases, but there are residents here this area was under mandatory evacuation, and for good reason.
Shalom Chavrim, I'm Stephen Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live here in Orlando, Florida, and we're trying to see how Orlando's going to fare out with the hurricane that is now the eye just south of Fort Myers, Florida. They're headed actually already inland now, still going north, but seems to have just a little bit of a northeasterly track there as it's moving north there. And of course, it's been downgraded once again. It's now got a sustained winds of 110 miles per hour. I kind of anticipated that. I know a lot of people thought it'd stay at Category 3 all the way to Tampa. I just didn't see that happening. By the way, if you are in Tampa or Fort Myers, any of those places watching, I've seen some comments of guys out there that are watching there. Love to have any of your videos. If you'd like to share them with us, we can share them here on Israeli News Live. You can send them to israelinewslive@gmail.com. Love to be able to hear from you guys. Winds are going pretty good right now. The rain is really starting to come down again. This has been happening kind of in bursts as well, where we've been getting heavy downpours and it slows back up. Heavy gust of wind, tornado wind warning after tornado warning as these heavy gusts of wind come in. Thus far, we've not seen too much flooding as of yet, but of course the rains have been falling all day. We are in Florida, the ground's pretty porous here, but I can imagine in a matter of time with all these bands coming in with this heavy rain, that's not going to last very long. But anyway, we'll be keeping you up to date. I think about the most we're getting right now is maybe 30 mile an hour gusts out of the storm. But I'm sure as the eye moves further north, and from what it's looking like right now, that eye could come over pretty close to Orlando. I think it'll be a little bit to the west of Orlando, which would put us with the strongest winds once the storm gets here. Maybe it'll still be a Category 1 hurricane at that time. Now we'll go back to the regular news and share with you some insights going on over in the Middle East. I'm Stephen Benoon with Israeli News Live. Shalom. Going back to the hurricane though real quick, this video here kind of popped up today.
It takes a filthy, vile animal to go out and loot during a hurricane.
Here in Florida, stealing everything, walking out, hordes of goods. I have no idea what the name of the store is that they're coming out of the back door with this. Suddenly, though, when you listen to the audio of this, one of the guys say, "Oh, we're being videoed." That's the guy right there. They take off running, going the other direction there. But, you know, you got license plate numbers and everything on this video footage that was being taken, but just hordes of stuff being stolen, looting already, and just really a shame on the community at large that they would be willing to just steal from these stores just because a hurricane is coming through. Very troubling indeed to see this, and I know the police did show up while the video camera was still rolling there. The people sped away as quickly as they could. But if it's anything like what happened in New York during the rioting that was happening up there and the stores were looted there, I don't think anybody ever faced any charges. And that's what's really sad about these storms and these things happening. Business owners do suffer the loss, and nobody ever seems to go to jail for it. Maybe they kind of know that, and that's the reason why these things happen.
Breaking news. This is a SWAT operation was reportedly underway in Orange County Sunday as looters were attempting to steal guns from a sporting goods store. According to local media, the standoff was ongoing at the Academy Sports Store as Hurricane Irma moved through the area. The scene is at 3557 Gardens Ridge Way near the mall at Millennia. One suspect has surrendered and another was barricaded inside and believed to be armed with stolen goods from the store. Now, there are no immediate reports of injuries. So one is surrendered, one is still inside with stolen guns. And now this is the Academy Sports Store near the mall at Millennia in Orlando. As of 7:01 p.m., suspect or suspects may be armed and believed may still be in the store. Multiple units with long guns pulled are on scene. Again, this was about 45 minutes ago. By the time you see this, we don't know what the outcome will be, but I thought I would share this with you as we're watching the storm track up the west coast of Florida. There has been some looting in some places, and we have this situation where a SWAT operation was reportedly underway in Orange County Sunday as looters were attempting to steal guns from a sporting goods store, and As of the time of this video, one of the looters is still holed up with guns.
Thank you guys for watching my video. I really appreciate your viewership.
In a standoff with
Please
SWAT.
like,
I'll leave
share,
you a
and
link to
subscribe.
this. I'm sure
And
that
don't forget to
there will
click
be
the
more
notification bell.
breaking
Thank you.
updates as
Have a
the
blessed
evening
day.
progresses.